stuff wrong more often, but I at least like the sites that kind of own up to and go, you know what, we had some bad sourcing or just didn't pan out or something like that. But when it's just kind of thing, and late for a while there, they were starting to do that. I had caught them be like, oh yeah, this was bad. But lately, it's just been like, oh no, and just I don't know. What once the director of the film kind of shuts you down, I feel like that's the time where it's different when it's like Chris Evans when he does the whole like, yeah, I haven't heard the news, but it's like he's not going against anybody. He's just putting a statement out there like, I don't think I'm Captain America, and then he moves on. Where this is
Right.
like the director literally saying, hey, like we're not casting right now. This my favorite was like, why am I looking for a Caucasian actor when he's golden? Adam Warlock. That was my favorite that he said. It's just like, yeah, like,
Right.
and even then I feel like he's trying to have some fun with it. And then they kind of get the kind of high and mighty to call him out. It's like, oh, no. And I just even question just the level of exclusive if it's talking about Adam Warlock's going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And it's just, well, I feel like if you watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I think you already had that answer. So I don't
Right.
know. It's a funny world we live in. Okay, I will.
Some people just can't accept they got it wrong. So
Okay, I will tweet out the links here, and then we're good to go.
I wonder if Mephisto's going to join us in the YouTube chat tonight. But we legitimately have someone of Mephisto that has occasionally joined us in the chat and has had some fun with us.
Well, the devil's in the details.
Literally.
We respect him as a filmmaker, and if he says this isn't accurate, we believe him, but our information could be corroborated.
Yeah, that image alone, what you just did is exactly what we all are doing in our network chat right now. It's like, oh my god.
Well, and I don't like it's to me such like a I don't know. It's just such a smaller kind of scoop in a way of like I just don't like. Why is this the one? Why is this the hill to die on? If it was like we know this secret character that hasn't been announced is in there, and we have really good sources. That way, you could even be like, even if you were lying, they could try to spin and be like, well, we can play this out. But I just feel like this is such a minor one that it's not even worth it. But hey, that scoop game is nothing I really know about and nothing I plan on ever getting into.
Right. I'm still looking up. I mean, I'm ready whenever you guys are. I'm just
just tweeting some stuff out.
Yeah, I'm looking at James Gunn.
Yeah, we are ready. Yeah, we.
Oh, he's right. That is a stupendous drone shot. And he retweeted. Oh no, I'm sorry. I was on. Okay, never mind. If I wanted a Zac Efron type, wouldn't I go to Zac Efron?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Oh, why is Adam Driver trending?
He's that first image of him, that Gucci movie came out with him and Lady Gaga. They're doing like the biography and everything like that. So he's like wearing this kind of very ridiculous kind of Gucci type of outfit and everything like that.
Wow.
Ridley Scott's directing, which is that's what interests me. I'm already interested because I really like those actors, but the fact that Ridley Scott is doing a Gucci movie is going to be interesting. And
wow, he retweeted this video, a drone video. It's incredible. It's like really accurate and going through small places. Holy cow! Drones are going to be able to do like what they could only do with CGI.
Yeah.
Right down to following a bowling ball. Wow, that is I don't know if you guys have seen this. This is the coolest thing.
No.
The drone goes in. It's James Gunn retweeted it.
Okay. Yeah, no, my timeline's just been filled with that and the Piers Morgan Britain morning talk show stuff. That's been on my timeline all day.
Watching that this morning, I was just like, oh, that went that way. Okay, that's fun. Good for you. Yeah. Stand on your high horse on your anti-Meghan Markle stuff. Have fun.
All right, Chris, we are ready. Right. Everything is live, recording, and good to go.
Yep, we are ready. Let's do this. All right, in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From comics, TV, and movies, we go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to Westview in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I am the Uncanny Chris.
I'm the podcaster Mischief Just Now.
Alliance Assemble.
boom, here we are, volume 39. And Chris, we have it's a fitting background because we have someone in the portal tonight joining us.
Yes, we do. We have a new guest, a first, obviously a first timer, Ryan Airy from Screen Crush.
Thank you very much, guys. Nice. I was holding for applause like Palpatine.
Oh, okay,
That's my
there we go.
Palpatine symbol. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you very much for being
Excited
on.
to talk Marvel.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, no, we were talking offline where I was been watching a lot of your WandaVision breakdowns at that point, and then you put out saying, "Hey, if you have a podcast or a show, come on out." I said, "Here we go. Let's put it out there." And so I know
several weeks later, here we are.
Exactly. I know you're very busy.
That was back when we thought it was Mephisto.
Yeah.
We thought it was Loki.
Wait a minute, it's not Mephisto?
We thought the Kree were behind the hexagons. Like there were more people in the finale than in Endgame. Everybody was going to be coming out of portals. Like, I was behind it.
It's only fitting that we found out that Iron Man, Tony Stark, was behind Wanda's breakdown. It only makes sense.
Oh, of course.
Well, actually, he kind of was.
Kind of.
There is a debate. There is technical debate. I always say, because lots of my friends are Iron Man friends, like, well, if Civil War didn't happen, would the snap really happen? Like, I feel like if they were united in 2016, things would have been fine. But no,
100% it wouldn't have happened. But Ultron saw it coming, guys. Ultron knew.
Yeah,
he did. Got a video coming out this week about that.
There you go. And speaking of, where can they find you and what do you do? Plug your Twitter handle, everything you do, that good stuff.
Why, thank you for asking. You can find me on Twitter at Ryan Airy. I went in there early, grabbed that handle, so it was available. And I make videos for Screen Crush. You go to the Screen Crush YouTube channel. There are several other screen insert noun YouTube channels. Ours is the best, Screen Crush.
I have to give
crush
you...
it,
Well, there you go. I have to give you respect, too, because I've been years chasing after my just Travis Snell handle, and there's someone on Twitter that has the Travis Snell handle, and they haven't tweeted in like 4 years. And every once in a while, when I'm bored on my lunch break, I check and just see, like, have they deactivated Twitter yet? Have they? And nope, they're still there. I remember a few years ago.
Contact them, try to buy it.
I've tried. They don't even respond. I just said, would you I don't even think they've logged on. And I remember a couple of years ago when Twitter said they were going to do that like mass cleaning of accounts that were either bots or hadn't been used in a while. I'm like, here's my time. But they weren't in the crush. So I'm hoping the second snap, like the one that, the Hulk does, I'm hoping gets them. But
that's good. Yeah. I got a few like that. I've had ideas for like fun Twitter handles and I'm like, oh, no.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Although, like, the fly on Mike Pence's head is probably available at this point.
Ooh, yeah.
That one's expired,
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got lots of good stuff. We're going to talk about the WandaVision finale. We're going to talk about news. As always, just go down in the description below and you can find every single show that we do here. 7 shows a week, 9, or other way around, Chris. 7 days a week, 9 shows in that week.
Couple.
So, yeah, covering Marvel, Star Wars, DC, comic books, slice of film, Power Rangers, everything like that. So just go down below and you can find everything there and our Patreon, stuff like that. But Chris, we should jump right into because we got a lot to talk about with this finale. We had the last episode of WandaVision.
We did, and I think we can all say every single theory that all the theories coming at. I don't think I tried to go into this in the sense of none of my theories are going to pan out. Absolutely none. So let me just watch the episode and see if I can enjoy it. It was a very heartbreaking episode. And some critiques here or there. I think a boner is done in this this episode, but I thought it was a good finale. It wasn't the end all be all finale, but I think it was a very good fitting finale for what they were trying to do with the show.
Yeah, what about you, Ryan? Where were you? And just, I guess, give a little overall in case no one's listened to you or watching your videos. What have you thought of the season overall, and how did you think it closed out this year? Well, I guess, assuming just only 1 year, because we don't think we'll be getting another season, but...
Well, on the channel Screen Crush, every week I make an Easter egg video. Sometimes followed up with explainer videos and things like that. So we're usually one of the first ones out there. So we've had a great year. And I've had the privilege of getting some things right, like Agatha, you could tell was going to be Agatha Harkness from the trailer. Agnes is going to be Agatha Harkness. And then like the fun of this isn't to be right in your guesses, it's to guess. Like it's so much fun that they release this one at a time, just like The Mandalorian, like real TV. and we had this privilege of like getting to dissect things. And what about the color of Dottie's roses? Like, what does that mean? I always like compared it to baseball, where you can go to the Hall of Fame if you fail 7 out of 10 times, So of course you're not going to get every theory right, but it's still a lot of fun. And I've loved the whole show, not just for, Wanda and Vision and their story, and seeing like the grief that she's going through, and like how they've really brought her on an emotional journey. And that was what concluded it for her. Like, that's how she got out of it, was by coping with her grief, but also just for this journey through television, looking at each era and then saying, well, let's not just do a 60s episode. Let's say, like, what did TV mean in that period? And what does that mean for Wanda and her emotional period? So I thought everything they did was so deliberate, and from a storytelling perspective, but because of the mystery and because of that episodic nature, we were reading way too much into every single aspect of the show. So I'm curious to see if for Falcon and Winter Soldier, if there's the same level of fan engagement, or if we're just going to sit back and watch. I mean, I don't think as many people are going to be going on YouTube for explainer videos about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I'm fine with that. I'm pretty pumped. Like, I thought it was a very satisfying ending, emotional. I mean, I cried watching it. It ripped your guts out. That being said, there were a couple things, like when Cataract Vision, whatever we're going to call him, Blank Vision, John Byrne Vision, when he became like, I am Vision. Well, if you're Vision, wouldn't you stay and help Wanda? But they had to write him out so she could have this conclusion with other Vision. And maybe that's like, the way I explained it in my video was, they had to get him out of there so they could actually write the ending they wanted. But also, maybe the Mind Stone gives the Vision his soul. And that's the one aspect that this guy was missing. So he had to go compute or figure it out. I doubt if he destroyed himself like Nomad in Star Trek. I don't think that it was like that kind of thing.
Especially off screen would be a little disappointing. When they pick up in Doctor Strange, like, oh, and Vision just self-destructed after he left it. Oh, okay, that was.
It's like a news item that he and Wong are watching. Like, no, Vision exploded over New York.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a Poochie ending in The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I did see. I haven't watched the whole thing yet, but I saw where Matt Shackman, who directed the show, was on Kevin Smith's podcast, and he was talking about. And are you guys going to talk about this later about what he said?
Yeah, I've got a few notes about it, but yeah, bring it up now. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Okay, sorry to step over the line.
There's no line here. There's a blender. We just jump in and we go.
All right, over the line, Smokey. What I thought was interesting isn't if you've seen it, but basically, he talked about how in the finale, and originally it was going to be 10 episodes, and they kind of compressed 2 of them together. And he said in the finale, originally, there was this whole subplot where Monica and Darcy went and they found the kids, and the kids are like, oh, Agatha has this magic book we saw in her basement. Let's go get it. And they go get the book. But then Senor Scratchy is there, and like, oh, cute bunny. We love Senor Scratchy. But then he like transmutes into like a American Werewolf in London kind of thing, or like Monty Python, the Rabbit Attack, and they have to fight this thing off. And they said it was great. They shot it. All the actors are great, but it was this clunky subplot that like it took the focus away from Wanda and Vision. But I'm so disappointed, because I thought in that last episode, I was like, boy, that's not much for Monica and Darcy to do in this,
Yeah, especially when Darcy's just going to take a truck and ram, Haywood at that point. It's like, that's it. All right.
Yeah. Well, especially for Monica, because I think with Darcy it's different, because like she's always been a smaller character, so it doesn't reign as true as that. But with Monica, because she had such a big setup in that episode when we had that snap episode and she's getting her powers, it did seem, and that's where I think I'm very similar on a track as far as you guys, and I've heard this said a few times, so it wasn't originating for me. It's like it was a good finale for a great season, and I think that's kind of the route I'm taking as far as I really liked it. I think all the emotional stuff with Vision and Wanda hit tenfold. They hit that out of the park. I think the actors, it's one of these things of like, you have that great reveal of the Scarlet Witch costume, but to me, just even that scene of them saying goodbye, to me, is some of the best acting they've done in the MCU. Especially Paul Bettany is just playing a very different type of Vision in that moment, something we've never seen. Someone just very torn and hurt, but he's trying to remain hopeful for one. It was just great stuff, but there were things like Monica just seemed just kind of there, which is kind of unfortunate. She had her stuff with Ralph Boner, which I'll talk about in a second. And then she says her goodbyes to Wanda, and that's kind of it. And we get the end credit scene, which is nice. So we know we'll see more of her. But it just seemed like when we met her, we were going to get a bit more in the finale, a bit more kind of layers there. And I still really enjoy the character. I'm excited to see where we go. I think the Hayward thing overall in the season is kind of a 50-50 for me. I've said it before that I just don't know if I needed another kind of bad guy in Sword yet. I just kind of wanted them to be like a good neutral. And I know it's like maybe him and a few other people that chose to do this, but
Yeah.
I just wanted we just got back from Shield. Even after Shield, it's like with Ross, the government was already being shady in Civil War. It's just like I wanted a full on, we're here to try and help you guys figure out what's going on with Wanda. And I think that I honestly would have taken most of the stuff out with Hayward. Of course, you need to create the snow vision, whatever, blank vision, but you have to do that. But I just wish there was a different way of getting there, because we could have used some more of scenes for maybe Monica or even more of Wanda and Vision. But overall, I think the finale did a really good job, and I think it's put us on an interesting track. I understand those scenes because I'm the same way as you. I heard those described as far as like I do want to see them, but it is nice having the episode Vision's there, but it feels very solely focused on Wanda, and I think they did a great job, and I think that's the biggest win of the show and the series. And I think looking forward down the line to the other ones is they've taken character like Wanda Maximoff, who, unless you've read comics, you probably didn't have that much investment in, right? She's in Civil War, Ultron, and the Infinity War, but maybe 15, 20 minutes if you put all the screen time together. I think this is really elevated her into the kind of topper echelon of MCU characters, and I've seen people that have never picked up a comic that really love this character. Like I've always talked about this, like the litmus test of when Suicide Squad came out and Harley Quinn was every costume. I feel like you're going to see that next Halloween because I'm even planning on doing it with my fiance as far as Scarlet Vision. Like I can already see that as far as people are talking about that, and that's a good thing when you enter the zeitgeist like that. So I think overall the series did a really good job as far as elevating characters and telling great stories.
Yeah, I mean, that costume. I'm glad when we came to the MCU, for the most part, they've been more leaning into, we're not afraid about doing superhero costumes, with a few exceptions here or there. And Scarlet Witch until now was one of the exceptions. It's like, yeah, we're a little afraid of that one. That was the perfect modern day, Scarlet Witch. That was, it's like, wow, they went for it. And I know they, I think it was interesting when, I can't remember what interview I was hearing, when she was in the Halloween-esque costume at that point. She was kind of feeling very uncomfortable because of the too much cleavage at that point, but she wanted to make sure whatever the final costume was, she says, I am not comfortable. I'll be comfortable making fun of what it is, but I want the real costume to be, more elegant and not necessarily like it was, like I think a red bathing suit, as she called it. So
it literally is a red bathing suit, though. They did that on purpose to make it look homemade. But it's true, when you go back and you look at all of her costumes, I'm pretty sure they all did show like a lot of cleavage, and she was more second. Which in the comics, she had one costume where she's basically in a corset and a cape.
Yeah.
I think what you're seeing, though, as far as like those not realistic, those comic accurate costumes, is the MCU started off more like the Ultimates. Very like when you go back and you reread the Ultimates, it's like, oh my God, this is the Avengers. They copied this template. So everything had to be based in realism. They couldn't have a goofy name, whatever. And then they've just slowly over the years taken things back to, and I think it's also partly because of X-Men and Bryan Singer wanting to keep everything as realistic as possible for some reason. Spider-Man suits, had to be like this, like darker with the material, like a little, not like the hokey TV suit. They were always trying to like base them more in reality. And then you saw the evolution of that ends with Spider-Man and Civil War, where it's not only very comic accurate, but his eyes move. Like they are not running away from headpieces and that look anymore. And I'm so happy about it. Makes me very excited to see the costumes that we're going to see coming up.
Oh yeah. And looking at some of our, like you all brought up, like that last moments between Wanda and Vision were probably, I think it's the penultimate episode that they should submit for, her nomination.
Yeah.
For her nomination, because that is a tour de force of emotions, and she has shown, I haven't seen her in much outside of Godzilla, until she became in Scarlet Witch. But talk about just like bravo for acting, bravo for even that whole scene with Paul Bettany looking at whatever we're calling White Vision. I like your thing, John Byrne Vision. I'm going to go with that from now on. And that discussion right there, and just having the logical discussion. And our our friend Brent, who's been on the show a couple of times from Fans Without Borders and Marvel Squadcast, had found I believe the comic that they actually took that from. And I didn't realize that they had taken that dialogue from somewhere else. The scene.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah,
I was mad at myself because I reread and read for the first time several dozen, probably 100 books, and I just didn't get to that era of the Avengers. Yeah, you're talking about the ship of Theseus, right?
Yep, the ship of Theseus.
Yeah, that was great.
And it's a perfect kind of discussion between two beings of not only mass knowledge, but just like, where do we go from here? What is it? And at that point, just him unlocking his memories, I said, that's the perfect way to have him go off and start figuring things out. I think that was a great way to exit that character, and we'll deal with him later.
And the way I compared it, because we talked about that too in the review, as far as like, okay, why didn't he stick around? For me, I compared, it's a weird thing to do, but I compared it to 50 First Dates, where every time Drew Barrymore woke up, they had to show her this tape, right? And eventually she would start to get those emotions, but she didn't have the memory of those emotions. So that's why I took Vision as like, he's seen this all. He's seen Ultron, Infinity War, he's seen the death, he's seen him falling for Wanda, but that doesn't mean he has those emotions, right? And I think it's a lot for him to take in. So he could even, because like it switches from day to night, but it's literally only minutes in the real world when it's happening. So he literally could have showed up later, maybe in half an hour, been like, oh, I'm here to help Wanda, but she's gone off to the Incredible Hulk shack and everything like that. So I think that I like that, and I'm very interested to see where he pops up. And it is just very funny thinking about that interview Paul Bettany gave like weeks ago, saying like when he met for this show, he thought they were firing him, and now it's like they brought him for his own show and he's going to pop up somewhere. Where, I don't know. I know everybody automatically just jumps to Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness. I don't actually agree. I feel like we're going to see him appear somewhere else without Wanda first, and they're going to build up to that reunion, whether it's a crossover or something, because I think that could be a moment, not to the same extent, but the same way as like when Iron Man and Spider-Man met together back up in Endgame or something like that, right? If you were to see those two characters finally reconnect, both fully formed, and him having those emotions, I think that's better than just rushing right to Doctor Strange. But it's all about how they do it. I have no idea what they're exactly doing for Doctor Strange, so it could make complete sense. But I am very interested to see, Ryan, do you think he is Doctor Strange bound, or do you think it's somewhere else that we may see this new Vision?
No, I don't think he's good. I mean, I think if he were in Doctor Strange, they would have announced it when they announced that, that Elizabeth Olsen was going to be on the show. So I presumably then we can infer that he is in a show they haven't announced yet, or a movie they haven't announced yet. I also agree with everything you said about having them go on their separate journeys, and it means more when they're finally reunited. I think that's amazing. What I think it'll be, and this is like, we did a video on this too, it's obvious they're introducing young Avengers into the characters, at least. Like, I think almost every movie has potentially some connection to a different young Avenger from the comics. Like even Loki has young Loki who could come into it, So it looked to me like, okay, so before they had X-Men, that's the way they were going to introduce these characters in the whole next generation. It just fits. Kang, all that stuff's being set up. And if you remember in the Young Avengers comics, it's Vision who brings the team together. It's a different form of Vision. It's an old program that he wrote. Like, it's a long story. But I could definitely see this version of Vision going, oh, there's no Avengers, and kind of gathering them together, which will be interesting because it'll be his sons as part of the team who he doesn't know or remember.
But they know him.
He remembers them, but he doesn't feel anything with them, And Wanda will be a much, much, much more interesting character in Multiverse of Madness if he's not there. Now, maybe she goes off the deep end again. Maybe Darkhold grabs a hold of her, whatever, and Vision shows up in a surprise cameo to bring her back. I could see that happening. But I think it would probably cheat the story if he just came in like a Deus Ex Machina and solved everybody's problems with their love. I think that'll be like a different story.
That's my concern. That's definitely my concern at that point, having that moment, because the MCU does have those moments of that, and it's a very easy kind of trope to kind of fall back onto. But and we'll have to see.
It's a big storytelling trope, because it's just something like, I think that's a good reason why Doctor Strange didn't show up, because that was lots of people's fear, as if the people that want to see him, great, but some people that fear was like, is he just going to show up and fix everything? And that kind of defeats the purpose. And I've always been someone like, I love the Lord of the Rings series, but I've always been on Peter Jackson's camp of like, I hate the Army of the Dead. I hate them so much in Return of the King that's the thing that they just find the sword and they bring all these zombies and they help and
Yeah, I
they
don't
save
like it
the
either.
Yeah, and it's just
Yeah.
so like, and I remember because when he said that, book fans just kind of tore him apart. Like, no, you can't say anything against Tolkien, but it's like, no, in my opinion, I think he's right because it flattens some of those characters. So I think kind of what you're saying as far as him being in Doctor Strange, I could see an end credit as far as her learning his location or vice versa, right? Of maybe he's finally settled with his emotions and go, oh, I do have to save one. And plus, that's a good thing of like, if there is an end credit scene, that's something they don't have to announce. They could go shoot that in a weekend or something like that and not have to say anything. So I'm not saying he won't appear in Doctor Strange, but I don't think he'll be a main crux as far as he brings down Wanda or he talks her down. It's just like, no, I think we can wait for that. And I know people have been kind of having some fun being like, oh, you thought Nightmare or Mephisto were the villain of Doctor Strange, so they show Scarlet Witch. And I still don't think she'll always be the main villain. I think whether it's Baron Mordo or somebody, they will be another. I look at her as like Tony Stark in Civil War, where she may be opposed to Strange, but she's not going to be, oh, and all of a sudden, oh, to get my kids back, I have to kill everyone. No, because we saw in this finale, which was great character development of, there was no Nightmare. There was no Mephisto. Agatha was there, but she wasn't the one hurting these people. And Scarlet Witch got to see up front. Wanda got to see up front all these people in tons of pain talking to her. And like, how heartbreaking was that when Dottie was like, can I just see my daughter again? That's when it's just like,
can she be friends with your boys?
Yeah, would you like that story?
Like
and
begging
that's
for a story. Yeah.
and that's just like, that's some crazy, really scary stuff. And I think that settled in. And I remember when I was talking with somebody, I think it was on Twitter, someone said like, well, what makes her, what makes the difference between her and Thanos? Like, why isn't she a villain? And I always say like, the difference is Thanos, if he were to realize he was hurting people, he would just go, well, I have a goal. I have to do this. But she eventually realized, hey, after all this, look what I'm doing. I'm hurting people. I'm separating them from families. Could be possibly killing them. This is not right. So she may have an edge, but I don't buy that she is going to get the Darkhold and do anything to get her kids back. She may do something accidentally, but that's why I think there will still be a third party causing trouble that, might cause the eventual team up that has to happen.
Well, that's why I kind of thought that there was a very much a split personality going on with Wanda.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was.
And because, again, you see, it's almost, I'm even trying to trace it in the sense of it's when I want to say the moment came with Monica having that realization that she had that snap out of it. It's like, and so she has one attitude that she's trying to hold on to, but the more Vision started questioning things like that, she kind of lost like everything. And so when she realized everything she's done, I mean, they weren't kidding when they said this was going to seriously delve into mental illness at that point. I mean, even the showrunner Schaefer talked to the New York Times and said the original pitch for the show, and I think they kept it really well, was mapping the stages of grief.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 100% what they did. I didn't know they deliberately said that in an interview. That's great.
Yeah. She's in the writer's room. We had intense conversations about grief and loss. We had a grief counselor come in and speak to us. My initial pitch was the structure of the show was mapped to the stage of the grief. And I think we can kind of see that as with certain episodes, some of them very clearly, at that
denial,
point,
anger, acceptance. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's one thing I really enjoy my second watch was it didn't click in at all for the first time, probably because I watched it at midnight, so a little tired, a little groggy the first time. But the second time I was watching it, and that moment again when the townspeople come in on her, and the way I took it the second time was kind of what people talk about depression, but even in a sense of there's times where, let's just say you wake up and you're in a bad mood or you've had a bad day, your mood or your aura can just sometimes put other people off. Now, this was to the like nth degree of like really bad stuff happening, but to me, that's what the allegory was there as far as like with your depression, stuff like that, with the choices you make, because you are, so concerned about yourself, which you should be, but at the same time, you don't know what your choices can affect other people. You might not even know in the moment. Where Wanda didn't. She just thought she was making these people happy, giving what she wanted. Same thing. You may give some person an answer that they think they want, and that may not be the case. So on the second watch, that really hit with me as far as there's been times where it's just like, yeah, you don't know how your attitude or whatnot or your personality can affect somebody or other people. And that's the good thing about the show, that yes, of course, you have Agatha and Wanda in the sky throwing, magic bolts at one another. But to me, like, the reason why the show is really good and why it's going to stick with me is kind of the stuff we're talking about, the stuff that you can't do in the movies. Not because, the TV's better than movies. Not in that debate, just that TV has the time to do that, right? It has more time. It has slower pace it can be. You don't have to get to the, big action set piece every half an hour or something. Of course, the ending still has that. I know people have some problem with that, but I feel like that most comic movies do, like in general. You know, like that's where I'm not the biggest fan of the movie, but that's where I really like Doctor Strange as far as that cinematic battle is just like he outsmarts Dormammu. That's why that stands out because like, oh, this is very exciting. But you even then 5 minutes before you had a big CGI battle with like time turners and stuff like that. So it just kind of happened. So I liked all that ending and whatnot and all that stuff we've talked about as far as the 5 stages and dealing with this stuff. So
how about we talk about the boner in the room?
oh yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. They could have gone so many different directions, so many different ways. At that point, I'd accepted the fact that he's not Quicksilver.
Mhm.
It's, even before the obvious fact that yes, it was Agatha all along. This wasn't a pull from a multiverse. This was them just giving us a recognition and bringing in an actor like that. Was I disappointed? A little bit, but not like really upset that I was like, okay, but just doing the Ralph Boner is just like, ugh. You're better than this, the MCU. You've done like lower tier jokes, but not like this.
Well,
I thought it was genius. Sorry.
No,
Okay.
no, you go ahead. Yeah, no, you go.
I thought it was genius for a few reasons. One, Boner is obviously a sitcom callback to Growing Pains. So
Yes.
it's yet another
Yeah.
tiny sitcom reference that was thrown in there.
Mhm.
And he was originally part of that group of Monica, the kids, and Darcy that went into Agatha's basement.
Mhm.
So he did have a larger role originally. that
Oh,
was
okay.
cut.
I missed
But-
that he was in that. Okay.
Yeah. So I forgot to mention that earlier when I talked about it. But the reason it took me a while, like, why did they cast him? They could have done anything. It was just stunt casting. The reason they cast him is because this show, the sitcom show, has always been presented from Wanda's point of view. The first 3 episodes were entirely from Wanda's point of view. And you're so right. Those little times when reality started to crack, the first one, for sure, you can debate on whether or not when Mr. Hart choked, but the first time her reality started to crack was in episode 2 when she sees the beekeeper and she says no.
Yeah.
But she rewinds time and she rewinds herself, right? So she's back in that I'm amazed by the world turning to color thing, right? So she's still part of it. When Monica says Ultron is when she actually like cracks a little bit and realizes what she's done. She looks at her hands, and from then on, she's consciously trying to keep this together. So the whole show is from her point of view. There is no other actor you could have cast in that role who would have made us think, is this Pietro? The same
right.
way that she thought, is this Pietro? So
You're right.
that was great. You think about how rare that opportunity is. Like, thank God the X-Men movies used Quicksilver at all, or that both studios used them. I thought that was fantastic in hindsight. At the time, I like you guys coming up with all these really complicated explanations for it that I'm really glad weren't true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not upset they used it. I like the idea, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not upset that they decided to use it or the fact that it was a fake out. After a while, I was accepting the fact it's going to be a fake out. I like the idea. What was it? Matt Schaefer had, he was actually on Growing Pains, so he kind of
was he?
Yes, that's where this came from. He was on Growing Pains, and
2 episodes. I think he said he was.
2 episodes, and so that was his callback to the boner stuff. So I mean, you're
I
right.
didn't know that. Yeah, just like in the school, like as a background character or something. That's great. That's really cool.
So I personally, I'm glad because people's like, oh, is he the introduction to the mutants? I was like, no, there's a better way, and Feige won't let this be the introduction to the mutants. He'll let it be a hint, but it won't be the introduction.
Well, it's like we've talked about before with that one. It was fun to think about, and it's still stuff like maybe it could have been fun to have that as a pocket universe, visit it, but it's still like a lot of baggage, right? A lot of baggage that he didn't create, the team didn't create. So I always got that. I will, of course, always say, like, I'm always going to be disappointed in this. And just the fact of, like, and I even messaged Chris before, I'm like, he's definitely nobody. Like, I've already said, like, before we go on this finale, I know he's nobody, but I'm hoping, and my hope was, Ryan, I was wanting them to do, like, the J.K. Simmons route as far as, like, he was playing a Quicksilver from somewhere else, but it wasn't the Fox one. It's just, like, we really like J.K. Simmons, so he's going to play Jonah again. So the same way as, like, oh, he's going to play Quicksilver. Or even what I was kind of wanting was maybe for him to be a regular guy and then get the powers and be Quicksilver in a sense, because they never called him Quicksilver, right? Pietro and everything like that. The growing pains note did help because I was somebody at the night and I was pretty negative as far as, like, I didn't like the boner thing. I didn't know it was. I've watched Growing Pains like here and there, but never watched it from like enough to know the characters, know something in deep of that reference. So at first I was like, yeah, it's a bit low hanging fruit. So I think that helps. But if you don't know that fact, I think it still comes off like, oh, are you making like a dick joke, which it can be a little like in that moment too. it's been an interesting conversation these past like few days as far as once the finale happened, because there was this debate of, and we even touched on it before, like theories and expectations and whatnot. And it is interesting. They definitely took that route, because even I think it was I can't remember, Chris. You may have it if it was Jack Schaefer or the director that talked about
Yeah, I
comparing.
meant to say Shakeman. I had some reason I said
Yeah,
Schaefer.
I can't remember. Well, there's Matt Shankman and Jack Schaefer, so they're
Okay,
very
so yeah, it was Matt.
yeah.
It was
It's
it was
easy to
Matt.
mix them up.
Yeah.
Yep, it's Matt Shakeman that was on Growing Pains. There we go.
But I can't remember which one, but one of them did say that they really did like the Mandarin twist. And that's why before weeks ago I was saying I don't know if they would do that, because there was such a negative reaction to the Mandarin twist when it first happened. There's people that do like it, but that initial like, oh, they took this character, and I feel like we definitely had that this weekend of people being like, they just did that. And I do get that disappointment. I've talked about this last week. I get the disappointment with the Paul Bettany thing. They need to sit him aside and say, never joke around like that again, saying you're going to have a big cameo with somebody you've never worked with. Like, even though it's teasing, it's like, that's the thing. The Elizabeth Olsen thing's been kind of proven as far as she never said Luke Skywalker, so
Thank
that's
goodness
fine.
she got vindicated for
Right.
that, because that she got raked over the coals.
Oh, she never said that?
No,
she never did.
It was the
It was-
question compared it to,
Oh.
is there a Luke Skywalker like cameo? And she
Gotcha.
said, oh, there's something fun, so
Well,
that
and,
one.
and poor
yeah, go
poor
ahead.
Tiana Paris too.
Oh.
It had a similar thing where it was like she said, "Oh, I'm so excited for that episode," and of course, she not even knowing probably what the fans would take that statement, dissected what we did with it.
And
I had so many people messaging me saying like, "Who's going to be the engineer?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, there's like, no one.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single person it logically could be.
And that's where the expectations, some of those, like, okay, Marvel does have to be careful in the future with these TV shows. But then the ones like, we need to see Reed Richards, Doctor Strange, X-Men, people that are disappointed by those I don't really give much merit, because those are just stuff we've kind of created. But anything like Paul Bettany being like given a little crack or whatnot. So the boner thing, I'm always not really going to be a fan of it, because I do like the casting. And my last point on this is, I've said this, Chris, before, I think it would have worked out better if we never had this leaked or rumored, because we wouldn't have had time to process. Where I learned
this leaked back in the summer.
This leaked in July. This was our second episode, Chris, when we started the show. That was our main topic, and we spent months, everybody, talking about what could this mean. If we only had those 2 weeks of him being there, we would have probably, of course, we'd have theories, but not to the same level of like 6 months worth built up. So it's an unfortunate thing. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but it is what it is. And like I've always said, I was happy Evan Peters got to come to the MCU and play around for a bit, though. And I don't know if there's anything more for Ralph Bohner. I don't think there is, but I hope he finds a role in another comic book movie. Like I said, one day I hope that man plays the Joker. So
yeah, I think this is.
Joker,
yeah, I think this show. That's the thing about mystery box shows. And that's the fun thing. Like you started off with, Ryan, like it's fun with the theories, it's fun with the ideas, it's fun going off in our own tangents at that point where it is. But and us, especially with a superhero show, Marvel show at that point, a lot of us with comic book knowledge, we like, oh, like that. A lot of times you're going to have to separate that, because again, if the MCU's proven anything, they're going to take ideas, hints. Not many times are they going to go full in lifting panel to screen. Sometimes they do. A lot of times they're just going to take a tip of the hat. To your point, Falcon Winter Soldier, it's not necessarily a mystery box show. This is going to be a spy adventure kind of show. So it's going to be a lot different in theories and perspectives and where we're going with that. But this is going to have to be that sometimes fans are going to have to reconcile themselves and say like, okay, I'm not going to be put out the theories, but hold them and don't be as butthurt about it if you don't get them right.
But a spy show, I mean, just going back, I've been reading and rereading a lot of Captain America. Now I'm on The Death of Captain America, which is so good. But I went through the storyline with John Walker and that private group that was augmenting people to make superpowered soldiers, and now it looks like they're doing that in the show. And so in that whole run, it turned out the Red Skull was behind Cap being thrown out of the government and like having the title taken away from him. It's like there is a lot of room there to introduce these elements. Like we may have that mystery villain in that show. It may not just be Baron Zemo, or it could end up being Ross, and Ross will recruit him to lead his Thunderbolts. Ross. It could all work out that way too. So like I'm hoping that we still have this element. I think no matter what, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be to a different degree in that sense. I think it's like you said, a who done it, or who's, like you said, who's pulling the strings.
It was interesting, yeah, because I was always looking forward to WandaVision, and I loved what ended up being the water cooler talk, and I have thought about that as far as Falcon and Winter Soldier. You guys make some good points, because I have worries, like, am I going to have that same... I think I'm going to enjoy it, because I've enjoyed everything the MCU's put out, but am I going to have that same, the second it ends, of like, oh, that was a good episode, or is it going to be like, oh, I really need to see what's next? Where Wanda, I think almost every week I had that of like, what is going on? I think they'll definitely have episodes, but there was just like, such a water cooler talk of like podcasts, friends, people at work, where Falcon Winter Soldier, if it takes to be more kind of not simple route, but just straightforward, it will be interesting to see, does it have that type of impact? I think Loki's going to have that water cooler thing, because if we're dealing with alternate realities, and like the second you see young Loki, the person from work that watches a Marvel show a year is going to hit me up and be like, why is there a child dressed as like, so that's where it's like, that is going to introduce a lot of things for people. For this, who knows? But yeah, Chris, I did like in our private chat one time, you said that the new thing's going to be who's Red Skull. Everyone's going to be pointing like, who's Red Skull? Is that Red Skull? Like the way Mephisto was for this show. So
right.
But I got my fingers crossed we see that Red Skull man at some point. But yeah,
trust me, I that character is coming back. I just don't know when, but he's coming back.
I hope you're right.
That's funny.
I really hope you're right.
The big thing, I remember pre-Infinity War, a lot of people saying like, "Oh, that's Alexander Pierce should have pulled off the skin." And it was Red Skull.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I remember the first time I watched Winter Soldier. The whole time I'm sitting there telling my friends like, "Oh, he's gonna be Red Skull." Just you watch, like it's gonna be Red Skull, and he was. And I was like, "Okay, no, he's just an evil dude." All right, and here we go. And then we didn't see him until he was floating with a cape. The time where I least expected to see Red Skull, that's where he popped up. And touche.
I thought Red Skull was going to show up in a future movie with there was a really bad movie called Iron Sky about Nazis who lived on the moon and came back. I thought it was going to be like that. I thought he was going to be like to show up with like he like radicalized all the aliens and they became Nazis, and I just thought I thought that's the way they were going to go with it. So all the other people that were shot with the Tesseract ray would have just transported, so all the Hydra soldiers would be like on the Kree home world that he took over, or whatever the hell was going to happen, So
almost Palpatine from Rise of Skywalker, where he just had people coming from the ice living there. It's like, look, I have a bunch of dark side people. It's like, oh, Red Skull, same thing. You never know. He's off Vormir now. You don't know what he's doing. I would just love if he was like somewhere on a beach, though. Well, it's such a debate, right? It's just like he disappeared, but then to me, it's like if Steve put that stone back, does he just get sucked right back there? He's like, I was so close,
Right, but that was that's a whole other thing. Like that's a different timeline, because they did the Doctor Doom time travel thing, and
it's a can of worms.
Created a divergent timeline, right? Yeah.
We'll have to see, but yeah, I mean, I think all of us are pretty confident we're not going to see a quote unquote a WandaVision season 2, but maybe
I hope
something different. Something different.
I think the possibility of getting something with Vision and a show is possible. Not even if it's just adapting. We talked about for like Tom King's Vision, I could see that. But just even a show of him trying to find himself too, and kind of mixing that with Tom King. Like I could see. I think Wanda's going to get to a level where I don't know. I'm with people pitching. Oh, I want a solo movie and stuff like that. But I think down the line you could see, maybe not next year, but in the near future you could see something with Vision, or who knows? Because there's always been rumors Young Avengers could be a Disney Plus series, right? So. Who knows? But it's exciting times.
Yeah, but yeah. So again, all in all, I think we agree that the season as a whole was a very, very impressive first start. Even though it wasn't expected to be the first, I'd say that Marvel Studios has proven that they can do it. I don't think there was many doubts, but I think there was always a little bit of apprehension. But I think they definitely have given a lot of confidence that they're sticking around with streaming for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we are going to take our first ad break that helps support the show, helps support the network, helps keep the red lights on and everything like that, the web fluid and the web shooter. So we will be right back. And we're talking, actually, our first topic is going to be talking about a web shooter. So there we go. So we will be right back. And nothing happens here, Ryan. It's just silent for us, and then it gets edited later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The magic.
All right, I think I'm going to pop out now then.
Okay.
It seems like an organic place to do that. This was a lot of fun. Please have me on
thank
again.
you so much.
And we're going to talk graphic novels at some point, right? Whenever I think of whichever one I want to talk about. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. Be thinking about
good.
that.
Yeah,
all right.
I've been on the show. You'll enjoy it. It's hard to pick, but you'll enjoy it. Chris does great homework. I've been on it. That's how me and Chris first connected. I listened to that show. It's a good show, so I can't wait for you to do that. But no, thank you very much for coming on here. We'll definitely do something again in the future. But thank you for giving us some of your time.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And we're back. We're back. Just want to give a big thank you to Ryan. All his description, his details, YouTube channel, Twitter handle, everything will be down below. But yeah, that guy just has a lot of knowledge as far as go watch his videos and stuff. And that's the thing that impressed me. We were talking about before because I know editing videos, he's doing a lot more. But what impressed me, how you know someone's really putting in the work when he's like, oh, I read like 20 issues of this and that. And like you and me even did that just for like, oh, we read one-offs and whatnot. This is, and I'm sure talking to him, I know he enjoys it, but still like I imagine he like tracks out and goes like, okay, I'm going to read these 20 things, go. And it's very impressive what they do there. Cause I could like seeing those Easter egg videos, like, man, that is some impressive stuff. So thank you very much for your time.
Even though the show's over, and as you said, a lot of theories didn't pan out at that point, just watch those Easter egg videos and it explained he does some great work, and he's not kidding when he does the amount of research he does. So
and I feel like with him doing the Easter egg videos and theories and whatnot, he's the perfect, don't get married to your ideas sort of thing, because he has to be throwing them out constantly with these videos. But yeah. Lots of good stuff there. Again, thank him for joining us for the WandaVision topic. It's always good to get someone else in the mix more because you and me talk about it quite a bit all week. So it's been fun to have like a guest of the week, and a big thank you to everybody that came on, whether it was Scott, whether it's Brent, whether it was
Tim.
Ryan, Tim, stuff like that. So it's been a good time, and I know obviously with Falcon, I'm going to be there for the first episode. Then we're going to have the new person, but Falcon should be pretty fun. So
yep, it should be. So let's get into we got 3 topics. This one came about this morning, and you and I said like, you know what, this seems to have a good bun of meat to it. So
yeah.
Excuse me. This is
you and I both got something in our throats today. I don't know. I'm not sick. I literally just like it's water down the wrong hole the whole time. As Ryan was coming on, I'm like, clear the throat. It was just so funny, the timing. But yeah, #show coming out with something.
Yeah, exactly. Sony and Marvel split Spider-Man into 2 separate franchises. They are deeming this an exclusive for them. And exclusive is fun on Tuesday night on Twitter. So we're going to leave it
just
at
go
that.
Look at James Gunn's Twitter account. We'll go from there.
Yeah, exactly. Make your own theories. But they said, reading from there, we have exclusively learned that Sony will continue making their Spider-Man films, with Marvel continuing with Spider-Man as well. That means splitting of the franchise into 2. From what they've heard from their sources, Marvel is looking to create 2 Spider-Man franchises. One will continue Peter Parker's story, this time going through university, and the other will focus on Miles Morales. It's said that Marvel is keen to use Miles in their upcoming Young Avengers project and see a lot of value in him. From what they've heard, No Way Home is going to provide as much of a clearer roadmap for Spider-Man in the MCU. They've heard that Spider-Man 4 this is going to be interesting because it kind of disputes what I was about to say Toby. Tom Holland has said about his plans for a while, that they're going to be filming Spider-Man 4 will film back to back with No Way Home. We have yet to corroborate that. I think that's a little tough to say right at this point.
That is I didn't catch that part. That's
that one I kind of like, I don't know if I would have put that, but either way, Marvel is already looking for writers and directors for the franchises. Peter and Miles are 2 completely different stories. The writers and directors who can bring very distinctive views to it. Marvel and Sony, according to sources, also are concerned about branding. They're worried that having 2 Spider-Man franchises at the same time will create possibly some general audience confusion. Having a strong vision behind each one is a primary strategy, and that was my concern too. I'm not saying the general audience can't distinguish the 2. It's just, how are they going to introduce this? Are they same universes, which I would love, because in the comics we have proven that you can have 2 Spider-Man and be completely fine at that point. But this is an interesting direction. I was kind of, the #show, I think they've had some decent scoops. So the fact that they're putting this one out there, this is new. This is definitely a big time thing if it's true.
Oh boy. Okay, so I got I don't know where. So I'll start on one thing as why I think this may not be true. And I think you and I have talked about this before, where sometimes we'll read scoops and everything's seeming good, but then there's just one thing that comes in there and you go, I think it's the sense off. That filming No Way Home and Spider-Man 4 back to back, that to me is a sent off type of situation where I feel, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't feel like, I even feel like that's something they would announce. I don't like, are they trying to imply that they're going to secretly shoot Spider-Man 4? Like, and just like, I just don't buy that. And I feel like if they were doing that, they would have announced it up front. Plus, what does that do with the contract situation? The contract was one movie, one crossover appearance. So that for me, just up top.
According to according again, but did it again. Tom Holland, according to Tom, I don't know why I'm
Right.
just want to say Toby, but Tom Holland said, a couple weeks ago that his first time he has no acting contracts. So whatever that idea was of one team up and one solo, I don't know.
Unless he's already shot that cameo solo appearance too, right? It could have just been like an end credit thing. So
it could be Doctor Strange.
Yeah, exactly. So I think not all this rumor, because I think that happens a lot with scoopers where they have some of it right and some of it wrong. So I think all this rumor isn't true, but some of it may be. I don't know about all this. As far as it's so funny. I've talked about this before, and people may think I'm crazy, but like out of all the characters I hear in Spider-Man 3, anytime I hear Miles is in it, that what makes me wince, because I just go, to introduce like Defoe, Toby, Andrew, you don't need that much time. Let's say it is multiverse, a portal opens up, you'll explain it very quickly. I know everyone's been dogging on the MCU this week of like, look at Mysterio, look at Ralph Boner. They don't do multiverse. They're all fake stuff. Where was Thanos from in Endgame? Like, where was Nebula and Gamora? What's Loki about? Like, just because the multiverse wasn't in these two things, which I get it. I was disappointed by Ralph Boner too. Ralph Boner's always going to be around, but like, they still do multiverse. So the people that right away just shut down like, well, I guess this means no Toby and Andrew, then it's like, no, let's calm down. I think enough people have said it that I believe it, but let's wait and see. Maybe it's not. Don't get your expectations too high. But my point is, you can easily open up a portal to Toby's world and the audience will get it, go, okay, that's Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man crossing over, right? People will know that's Miles, but I just think Miles as a character deserves that origin, that build-up, that meeting Donald Glover again and like, hey, you're, even if he's not proud, just like, this is the nephew. I just don't want that rushed. You can rush the villains, Toby, Andrew, because they've already been established. Miles, I don't know. And people, maybe you can compare it to what they did with Tom Holland in Civil War, but even that to me is different because that's Peter Parker. We still know Peter Parker. We know that origin. Yes, we know Miles a bit better, of course, now. We've read comic books before, you and I, but for the general audience, you have the video game, you have the movie. So, yes, but I just don't know if it's still on that level where you can just boom, here, there's Miles. Unless I don't, and my last point with you, and I know we'll talk more, but just like, when they say different franchises, are they trying to say that Miles would be in the Young Avengers while being in solo movies in Sony? Is that how you took it, or how did you take it, like separate ones?
It was kind of strangely worded, just because like they, it's almost like they're saying, okay, they're going to give Miles to Sony to control, and Marvel will have Spider-Man. It almost seemed like Spider-Man proper.
But the story almost dictates.
I don't necessarily like that.
But the story almost goes back on that when they say Miles would be in Young Avengers. So to me, it's like, well, that's in the MCU then. So
now maybe they're trying to say like Sony will be the main leader when it comes to Miles stories, and Marvel Studios will be kind of the main with Peter Parker. And this is maybe the idea of playing nice. They're not going to have their quote unquote different universes, and this is how they're going to play nice with each other. But way Miles was introduced, spoiler alert for Ultimate Spider-Man, was very pivotal in the sense of an Ultimate Spider-Man, Peter Parker dies.
Yes.
Dead, legit, doesn't come back. He's dead. And then we get introduced to Miles Morales. That was a huge, huge change, and it carried on. And some of the best writing, continued best writing at the time for Brian Michael Bendis. I mean, that he did an amazing job, not only with that, Ultimate Spider-Man, but carrying that on with Miles.
It's his defining story, in my opinion. We've talked about it before. That will always be what he's remembered for, I think, when it comes down to one.
But it's kind of like it in a different way. It's a very important character because of who Miles is and his ethnicity and his background and where he hails from and everything. That's, why did I bring up last week, Puerto Rico at that point?
Yeah.
And so again, here are my theories. Guess what? If Puerto Rico is not a part of it, Miles not part of, No Way Home, I'm not going to be that upset. Jay brought it up in the chat just a little bit ago. What he can't stand is, or he or she, I'm sorry, Jay, I don't know. Hard for me to tell. When people get their theories and own it so much, and if they don't meet their expectations, like you just said, it's terrible at that point. I am completely in agreement with that. And that's where I just roll my eyes like, come on, this is where we got to separate it. But I'm with you. I think some of this is true. I think we're gonna get an introduction of Miles. I don't know if oh god, I keep on wanting to say Far From Home. No Way Home
It's those
is.
home titles, Chris.
I
They need to
know,
change
yeah.
them.
No. No Way Home, with everything that's going on. I'm not saying it's impossible to introduce Miles into the movie. I'm just I want to make sure it's done right. I don't want to make it rushed.
Now, and here's to me a comparison where I agree with people when you talk about Captain Marvel. They touted that as a movie as you need to see this before Endgame. You didn't need to. You could watch a YouTube 15-minute explainer and you get it. But I think what helps is the introduction of Carol / Captain Marvel. Because if you take out that movie and then she's just in that movie, the whole time you'd be like, who is she? Why is she here? What importance does she have? With the movie, you get her character, and I almost feel like that's what Miles needs. I don't want Miles to be thrown in the big invasion. Like I said, if there's a whole like Tom, Toby, and Andrew fighting bad guys, and then like here comes Miles who just got bit by a spider at the 15 minutes mark, and now we haven't seen it. It's like what worries me in this story, if it were true, that they just sound like they're using Miles because he's hot right now, and that's a good thing to do. But just like I want to do because like we have a great story and we want to bring him to the big screen, not just like, oh well, you have him and then we can share him for Young Avengers, and to me that gets very messy. If you have, because we had heard that before, right, of rumors of maybe eventually Tom would be made by Sony movies and then he would just be in crossovers. I think that's tough. Of like, let's say we are in this world where Sony's going to make the solo Spider-Man Miles Morales movies, and then for crossovers, MCU gets them. That means unless they're really playing ball and they're sitting down being like, let's map this out together and we'll even produce it, if they're just on their own, I don't trust that, because I already don't trust. Yeah. I guess for me, I still need to see Morbius and see what they're doing with this Michael Keaton thing. Yeah, and well, I don't know if I need to see Venom, but I'll have to see Venom. No, but
you know you want to.
Well, for a car wreck, yeah, but that's the sad thing when someone said, what would you rather see, Venom or F9, because they're on the same day? And I went, Fast and Furious 9, because I just got to see the ridiculousness of Vin Diesel and John Cena trying to play brothers to one another. Like, come on. That's some good stuff. Like, but like, that's the thing, until I see Morbius, because we know there's a direct Michael Keaton cameo, I need to wait and see what they do. And again, I don't like this idea of just him being in Young Avengers. Like, here's another spider person. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying you need to kill off Tom Holland or anything. It's just I do believe some of these things, and so far it's not tickling my fancy. Now, everything can be changed with execution, right? I've heard many ideas where I go, and I've brought this up before. This is a Marvel podcast, and it's been talked about a lot of week, but like Richard Grayson dying in the DCU. I didn't like that idea. I still don't like the idea, but when I heard Zach of why he chose that route, I went, you know what? I could see that. Obviously, he never really executed because, maybe Warner Brothers and him had some troubles. But like, once I heard reason why he chose, I went, oh, you know what? I still not the biggest fan of it, but I can see where you're going, and I kind of like that. Same thing with this. On paper right now, I don't like this idea of Miles being just thrown in the Young Avengers, and here you go, you're off to the side, and you got Miles. But maybe on paper, maybe I hear this grand plan of Sony and Marvel working together, it'll work. But like I said, I tend to believe some of this isn't true, and just really based off that shooting the movies back to back. To me, that's a red flag where I go, that's nothing we've heard before.
That most franchises who do that, I'm gonna call out Mission Impossible. Until recently, that was the plan. They had announced and been upfront about it. Those next two were filming back to back, but now with COVID, everything backing up plans, Tom can't do it back to back anymore. So they're going to have to change it up because of his schedule.
Pirates, when they did that, they said, we're shooting these two back to back. Matrix, same thing. Because remember, Matrix had that plan of we're shooting Reloaded, and the reason is because Revelations come out the next year, right after. So
correct me if I'm wrong, I think Infinity War and Endgame basically shot back.
They pretty much did, yeah. Like I think they shot almost back to back, or they just started going right away on Endgame. But it's pretty much the same thing. If they're gonna be, they usually announce these things. So to me, especially in the time of COVID, I just don't buy them doing some sort of secret, we're shooting a fourth movie, and that just seems odd. So I want to see Miles. I really do. I just want it to be done right. And with Sony, that was always my worry as far as them picking Venom, was just because Venom's really popular. People really like Venom because he's cool. And that's what I just worry, if there's something that they're not doing this because we really want to tell Miles' story. Just like, oh, well, Miles has that video game Spider-Verse, let's go with it. And they still make me worry. Even Spider-Verse 2, I bring this up every time. The fact that it doesn't have the same director is always a head scratcher. Me like, really? Like, why is this the case? Why is these guys who directed this, some people consider one of the greatest, if not the greatest comic movie of all time? Wouldn't you think you'd bring them back for a second one? No.
Hey, guess what? Spider-Man has.
Well, yeah. And
James Gunn's come back. Yes, we had that little time where he wasn't, but
somehow Sony can drop the ball and be like, you know what? No, we got, and maybe these new people are great, but it's Sony. I have a lot of trust issues with them. We talked about a few weeks ago, I think, when Scott was on, because we were talking about his, watching the MCU and whatnot. And I always said that I wish they didn't buy Fox, because there was lots of things Fox was doing I really like. Sony, other than Spider-Verse, so take that out, live action wise, they've not done anything I've liked since 2004. And liked is a broad term. Like, Amazing Spider-Man was fine, but Amazing Spider-Man 2 to me is god awful. I'm sorry, Heinz, I know you're listening, but there's a reason it's the lowest grossing live action Spider-Man movie, because that movie was
just popped it in the chat. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, his Spider Sense. Venom, I was not a fan of. I don't have great faith for Morbius and Venom 2. Oh, sorry, Venom, There Will Be Carnage. So, at least with X-Men, it was like batting 50-50. It's like, oh, you got Apocalypse, but then you got Logan. Oh, Dark Phoenix, but Deadpool 2. Sony, for a while in the Spider-Verse, not much going on. So, I don't know. It's an interesting story, to say least.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to see that. Like I said, I wouldn't have, if I were them, I wouldn't have put that stuff in about filming back to back, because that's too much. Like, you didn't have to put that in. Even they called themselves out. We haven't been able to confirm this. I guarantee you haven't been able to confirm this, because it's not true.
And don't say that's, and like, and just because from the last time we had our show, there's been so many like exclusives, and I'm not gonna go on a long rant because Chris and Brent know how I feel, but it's just like the past week of, especially, I won't say exactly who, but like the X-Men are getting a film. Adam Warlock is going to be cast, which go check James Gunn Twitter. It's pretty funny to say all the things he's shooting down, but just
here's a note. Don't tag James Gunn in something. When he tags you back and he says you're wrong, just accept it and move on, because you're never going to win.
And it's just like, and I talked about this, I think even before air we did with Ryan, it's just like, I bet the scoop game's very hard. I get it. Trying to get inside Hollywood details. I don't even know that game. I don't want to know that game. But I also know you got to be careful what hand you show. And I just feel like lately people, maybe because news is slow, they're showing a lot of cards just to get clicks. And they're not even caring if they're right or wrong. And there's people like Illuminati where I feel like lately we had talked about that. They had a good track record. They'd been reporting things coming out where, like, you know what? They're maybe turning the road. I was starting to bump them up in the C tier. And then they're doing this stuff like the mutants. They're doing this stuff like arguing with James Gunn on Twitter. And it's just like, no, so it's just like same thing like you said, with them saying we haven't been able to confirm this, then don't put that out there. Don't say that, because I just feel like, why even bother? Don't even, it's just kind of like, I don't know. Like, there's sometimes I like the stuff from Murphy's Multiverse when he purposely says, like, from what I'm hearing, and it's a separate article, but usually in his scoops, I don't know. It's an interesting game. That's my mini rant of it's just been a week of interesting scoops and exclusives with capitals and exclamation marks, and it's just, all right, okay.
Yeah, well, let's go on to another one. Let's go on to another exclusive.
Yeah.
This one is coming from... Wait for it. The Illuminati. Marvel Studios She-Hulk series adding a mysterious shapeshifter to the cast. So the Illuminati sources say that they have revealed a casting call for recurring character in the She-Hulk series under the codename Adad.
A dude. We're looking for a dude.
A apostrophe DOOD. She is 20 to 30 years old, female, described as a mysterious shapeshifter that embraces Earth's pop culture, enjoying the way she lives life. She uses her power in any way she can to make her happy, including to get herself power, money, and attention. And she will reportedly be in 2 episodes of the 10 of She-Hulk. Looking at the casting call, it seems to be something of an idea that she probably is, wait for it, a Skrull. Why not? But in comics at this point, they're leaning towards, and I would agree with them, that would be the character of Jacinda. She has a history with She-Hulk. She was a Skrull that was sent to recover an artifact in order to hide it at that point. She swallowed it. It bonded with her, and she is able to... she's escaping the Kree. So there we go. We're bringing them back into the mix. But fled to Earth. She can have the ability to bring back to life, and became kind of friends with She-Hulk. So cool. We're bringing the Skrulls to She-Hulk. This could be kind of an interesting thing of, hide me, save me, they're after me kind of
Yeah.
thing at that point.
Yeah, and I got an exclusive drop here. I have heard that She-Hulk is going to be green in this series, so I'm looking
I,
pretty
I,
forward
I
to getting some traction for GUA here with this scoop.
like I said in the chat, I said I've heard an exclusive at Falcon and Winter Soldier that Bucky and Sam fight a lot,
And I
each
haven't.
other.
Oh, really? That's a good one. And I haven't confirmed it yet, but I've heard that they're shooting seasons 3, 4, and 5 back to back with She-Hulk. But no, you were the one that
It's never gonna get old.
You were the one that pointed me to the Skrull stuff, and when I read all that, I was like, you know what? That seems completely right. I think the Skrulls could have lots of good comedy, and we see that we've heard this before. The show's gonna be a comedy. I think when she meets the character, she won't know she's a Skrull, and that could be a fun reveal of like, you're a what? And then the only thing I take from this is it's very I like we talked about this before with Captain Marvel, like just doesn't mean good Skrulls, doesn't mean they're all good, but I'm very interested to see that. Okay, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man: Far From Home, WandaVision, and if this is true, and then obviously we already know Secret Invasion. That's between like Phase 3 and Phase 4, the end. That's 5 properties that they're in. I'm surprised how much Skrulls were in there, and I'm pretty excited because I almost did worry at the end of Captain Marvel if they could be around, but I thought, what if they're just to Captain Marvel, right? They're just based in her universe where we may not get the whole in Secret Invasion where like don't trust anybody, but we may actually get this. Yeah, Skrulls are in the universe and they're all around. You may know some, you may not. So I like that idea, and I like that. I'm hoping now with all these rumors of Skrulls being this and that, we saw WandaVision, that when we get to Secret Invasion, it might not be, oh, Thor's been a Skrull this whole time, but it's going to be impact, and we're going to have a lot of them, and I think it's going to matter, and I think that's a good sign, at least, because also the other thing is people forget this. Captain Marvel, $1 billion movie. Lots of people know what Skrulls is, which is a good thing now,
Yeah, I mean, it was a good way to put it at the end of WandaVision to get Monica into that, because we know officially she's been cast at that point. And again, people say, "Oh, it's Nick Fury." I said, "Yeah, it could also be Talos, because that could have been there as well." And the other end credit with Wanda with the Darkhold at that point. What is she doing with that? I think a lot of those are very obvious. What's going on with those end credits. But I mean, it's fun in the sense of that's what the MCU does. They try to give little connections of not only hints of where things are going, but also showing a connected universe. People like connected universe. I like them sometimes. And I also like things that are one-offs. Everyone wins.
And it just builds the universe. Yeah, like you said, the Wanda and Skrull one, it was like earth-shattering, but it's like, okay, this helps connect. Why is she? And we've heard rumors of her being in Secret Invasion as well. Like that's not been confirmed, but it's like, okay, perfect.
It would track now. It would definitely track.
If she pops up right away, you don't go, how did this happen? You go, oh, I know exactly how this happened. That end credit scene. So yeah, I agree.
All right, so our last story of the week, looking at the Blade reboot. Listing tease, this is coming from the direct. They are not labeling this an exclusive because it's coming from someone else.
Yeah.
Listing teases mystery and comedy in Marsha Ali's MCU movie. POC Culture has exclusively reported, that's their exclusive, it's an exclusive day, reported that Marvel Studios has put out a casting call for 2 Black female roles for a project starting in September 2021, which is when Blade is supposedly supposed to be starting. The first role is named Betsy and is described as a 20 to 35-year-old Black African-American female. Betsy is said to be an aspiring hero, and the role requires a strong background in comedy. The second role is under the name Lucy and is reportedly a 20 to 30-year-old African-American female. Lucy is said to be tough on the run after losing her mother under mysterious circumstances and is spending time off the grid. And the interesting thing is that Daniel RPK has kind of delved into that, and the report kind of confirmed something from Disney Insider with, like I said, with Blade. But this role, one of the roles kind of strikes it very interesting. While these roles are very vague and the door is being left open for a lot of different character options, one of them seems very true, that we could possibly be seeing in the Blade movies Eric Brooks's daughter. Eric Brooks, for those that are uninitiated, Eric Brooks is the real name of Blade. This is Blade's daughter, Fallon Gray. Fallon Gray has had a very interesting history. It was been in development in a comic for some time.
Yeah.
But the creator Jim Seeley never got a chance to complete it since he quit the project before the book was ever published. And this has been Marvel Studios maybe trying to officially introduce his character into the MCU with our famous Daywalker.
It's so funny. We always hear like movies and TV shows that get like in development hell, but it's rare you hear comic books. Like usually when they get announced, they're coming out. Sometimes maybe a sequel won't, but the fact that I remember that they announced like the Daughter of Blade coming, and it was just like delayed, and it's like, yeah, it may never come. And it's such a weird story. Like Chris said, like look into it. It's
and they've got images, they've
Yep.
got like cover art at that
it's
point.
far along.
Yeah, and so again, this tracks again how many different young superheroes are we getting that we're basically saying it's not if a Young Avengers or a Champions is happening, it is when.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I said this. I think I don't know if it was on the exact cast when they announced it on Comic-Con, but on Geekverse, I have talked about the reason I feel Blade's daughter has always been in play is, I know this is an ageism thing, but it is Mahershala Ali because he is almost 50, and I'm not saying he can't do stuff, but I'm saying that it was. Look at all the MCU usually. They usually cast pretty young people because they want to invest and know these people are going to be around for the next 10 to 15 years. I'm not saying Mahershala Ali is going to be in a walk or be dying in 5 years. Not that, but it's just like they like people like a Tom Holland where it's like we know, like legitimately you could do another 15 years with them, you know? Where there's other characters or actors where you go, you don't know if you can do that. The stunts, the work, maybe he wants to do her things. And I was always caught off guard because I know Mahershala is such a fan cast, and I think it's could go down as one of the best casts of all time once we get this movie. That's why it's my most excited MCU project after Blade, and I don't even, or after Moon Knight, and I don't even have a director. But it's just because that casting is just inspired, and Mahershala is just one of arguably the best in the game. So
just like that's what the perfect thing of like you cast the actor in that you're saying, oh my gosh, I literally see him in this role.
Mm-hmm. And I just know what he brings, but I still always was like, I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's too old. It happened. So to me, I think that's a way of one, you could, even if he's not going away, he could be around for the next 10 years. It's introducing another side character that can be in that movie. And two, if he does want to ride off to the sunset at some point, if it is like, okay, I'm done with these movies, you have someone to pass the katana to and stuff like that, you know, like you have that built in there. Obviously it didn't happen in the comics, but, and it gives the character a different shade that you haven't seen in the OG movies for the mainstream, right? It's something different, and I buy it. I think it will happen. I don't know how big this character's role will be if it is his daughter, but I do foresee it happening at least at some point in the MCU as a natural here, you're next in line sort of deal. And I'm just excited because since we've been off, it's just been little details, but like you said, it says it's shooting in 2021. We didn't know that, which is good because it's just like we had heard rumblings, and still these are rumblings, but the fact we're hearing more and more is like, man, that means only that could mean 2022 we're getting it, and I think that just means I don't know when, but I can taste that a director's coming soon, I think. And I can't remember, someone had tracked on Twitter, it was like 3 instances where they announced the writers and then 2 months afterwards the directors, and vice versa. It was like Deadpool, this. So
and Miss Marvel pretty much was a good telltale sign of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then She-Hulk as well.
Well, yeah, and water break. I think we're close. It is very interesting. I forgot to bring this up. Well, Ryan was here talking about WandaVision, but what I can't wait for is next week. I hope some stuff drops before we record, but Kevin Feige is going to have to go back on press tour, which we saw with WandaVision, how fun that is. One, I think Kevin Feige is going to get asked the most boner questions he's ever gotten asked in his life. There's not.
Are the X-Men coming in the MCU?
Yeah, is Adam Warlock being cast right now? No, but like I just laugh that like I don't think he ever expected to be asked boner things, but I guarantee you he's gonna get asked a boner a lot. But I'm not saying he's gonna drop, hey, the director here, but I think even when we get to Loki, that could be a time where he does that Loki press tour. Around that time, we could hear a director announcement. So then when he goes on press tour, he can talk about how great he or she is, right? And that usually happens. It happens, and then he gets to say, oh, this person's great, blah, blah, blah. So I think by the end of the summer, which I even think sooner, but by the end of the summer, I think we'll know the Blade director, and I'm really excited. I hope it's... They pluck people. I trust them. Like, look, Chloe Zhao, I didn't know, and people are saying she's probably going to win an Oscar for Nomadland. So it's like, you know what? They did a good job there. I didn't know her, but apparently that was a great get. So I do trust them. I just hope it's somebody that has like it's just like a kind of like Ryan Coogler or James Gunn, where it's like a je ne sais quoi, where it's like they bring a little of their flavor to it, where it's like, oh, that's a Coogler film, that's a Gunn film. Like, I hope that's the case here. So I just love that we're getting details. You know, we're getting closer.
Yep, we're getting ever closer. So yeah,
Mhm.
so that's the news. That's all the fit to print. So let's get some fact or fictions from last week's. I'll give you some of mine, and you want to take our last ad break?
Yes, we'll take the last ad break. We're going to talk about fact or fiction, and then we're also going to do What If Civil War edition. So it's going to be very fun. And I'm going to announce what my What If is live on air. So you
I
can
know
hear that.
you've kept that from me.
Yeah. Oh, I literally looked today, and I think it'll be a good one. So, ladies
And
gentlemen,
we'll also announce what we're doing for the future of Comic Book Corner.
yeah, there you go. So lots of good stuff after this ad break. And we're back. So let's start off with the first fact or fiction that I dropped last week. And it's funny, this week we had 2 polls that were tied 50-50. So lots of people caught in the middle. But my first one, Ghost will be a member of the Thunderbolts if they happen. Fact, fiction, 50%. Like I said, I was kind of surprised. I thought we'd get a bit more in the fact thing. I just sometimes wonder if people forget that's a character. So they go, no, they won't bring her in. But I just feel like it's I don't know. Like we talked about last week. I feel like I won't say it's a given, but I feel like she's a strong contender to be in that group. But this is one of those ones that it's kind of like one time you did a Daredevil one, and then we heard those rumors about Daredevil. This was the same way of like
I love that thing. It's like they were listening.
It's the same way with this one of like, yeah, maybe I should have put it out before, but whatever. We will see Agatha again after WandaVision. 82% fact, 18% fiction. And that's the thing where we didn't talk about in the review portion, but I love what they did. First of all, Catherine Hahn did great, but I love what they did because I'm always a proponent, other than some of your big key ones where it's like they gotta go, keep your villains alive. Because even if you never use her again, you have her in the back pocket, which I think they will after what their conversation was. But
that's a guarantee at that point. That's a outright guarantee.
But even if they didn't, it's like, well, at least the door's not closed. You didn't kill them. Or if you kill them, you gotta go through multiverse or this or that, or they're just not there. So great ending, and I do think we will see her again. At first, I was saying no, but the way they ended, I loved it. I love that I was wrong about that one because I was fiction last week. And then the other 50-50 was the Thanos will return in Phase 5 of the MCU, not flashbacks. This one I get because, like I said last week, that's why I picked Phase 5. Because if I did 6, I think a lot of people would have just said fact because, it's so far. That could be a decade from now. Anything can happen. But Phase 5, that might be a little soon. But 50-50 it was tied. So interesting results we got this week. That's always fun to see.
No, it's good. So it's all right. I'll hit you with mine. All right. First one, the MCU will start to focus on their cosmic properties to build towards their own major movie event.
So I would say, like, when you're saying cosmic, that just means like space, like Guardians, Eternals, stuff like that.
Guardians, Eternals, at that point, they're going to, I'm just kind of reading the tea leaves, and instead of being one, I'm not saying they still won't have a one big movie that'll tie everything together. I'm just saying they will have their own event because I'll point to the comics. They've done events like that before, from Annihilation, Conquest, the War of the Kings. It affects sometimes on Earth, and you have those kind of tie-in issues of effects, but like, let's be honest, it's really in space at that point and dealing with the cosmic Marvel characters more so than the Earthbound.
I think it's a fact because it's different because it was Avengers adjacent. But look at Civil War. You had a lot of characters. You didn't have the Guardians in there. You didn't have Thor. You didn't have Hulk. That was their own little kind of big adventure there, right? I feel like you could easily do the same thing with Guardians, with Thor, with Eternals, with the Great Adam Warlock that's been talking about all day, with Nova, stuff like that. I feel it's in play, and I would actually really like that. I would love to see a big crossover event that's not. We've gotten little ties that have like Thor and Hulk Ragnarok, right? We've gone like the buddy crossover thing, but I want an event that is not, it doesn't have to be the Avengers, Jason, stuff like that. And I think we could even get that with Multiverse of Madness as far as the supernatural side. So we've heard about Midnight Suns. So it's like, if we could possibly get that, why not cosmic? So I will say fact on that one.
Yeah, I just like the idea that, again, everything can eventually tie into one big cataclysmic end game kind of thing. Everyone's kind of brought in at that point. But
yeah,
give them 3 or 4 properties. Like, I'll even call it out, like what Mandalorian's doing. You're having Mando, you're having Boba Fett, and then you're having, what is it? The
Rangers of the Republic.
Yeah, they're all going to team up. They're all going to have a big event thing. You can do that in these movies at that point, a cosmic focused one. Maybe Guardians Volume 3 is maybe the beginnings of that. Maybe Secret Invasion is hinting towards that kind of stuff, but it would be very, I'm sorry, listeners. For those that aren't watching, Mephisto has joined the chat.
Oh, Mephisto, our good friend Mephisto.
Sorry.
Thank you, Heinz, saying the shirt is amazing. Yes, shout out to rest in peace to the great Hot Rod, Roddy Piper, one of the greatest heels of all time. But Mephisto, where were you in the finale? We didn't see you there. You got to tell us, where were you hanging out? I thought you were gonna be in the show, but you weren't there.
You were apparently on the cutting room floor. How do you feel about that?
That's a tough gig. Yeah. And the other thing is, like, and all jokes aside about Adam Warlock, when he does get introduced, if you know anything about the comics, that's a very big, powerful character. That's a character that could, I think, go play with the Eternals, could go play somewhere else. I don't think you introduce Adam Warlock and then he just goes away. I think he's kind of like a can of worms. Once you open, he's open. So like I said, same fact to this one.
Apparently, Mephisto says, I have her children. No, that's not what I asked. I understand you have her children. I'm asking, how do you feel about being on the cutting room floor? I mean,
yeah,
that's tough to follow, because right now it's kind of like when people say, hey, I have a girlfriend, I have a boyfriend. I haven't met them yet, so you don't exist.
Did you at least get residuals for that cut room scene? Or if we go to Tom and Jerry and hit play, will we see the episode with you in it of Mephisto in WandaVision?
Yeah, he says he's PO'd about that. So,
yeah, I get it. It's a tough gig being an actor, being a devil actor, But at least there's still porn for you. So
it's as Kevin Spacey said in Usual Suspects, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. And guess what? You don't exist, Mephisto, right now.
No, but it also might not exist as his paycheck then if he's not existing in that show, So
that's true. All right, my next one. Hold on, I kind of went out of order on mine. All right, here's this one. Tying into WandaVision, I want to at least have one. Mm-hmm. We will get a new Disney Plus show focused on Vision in the next 5 years, but the next time we see him will be a movie.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, because that has to be an end credit. That's tough because I could see them. We jump to next December. Disney's earning call. Where's Vision? We haven't seen Vision. Where's he gonna pop up? I could easily see the same way none of us had we had zero idea about Armor Wars. No rumors, nothing like that. It was just like, oh, Rhodey may appear again in the future. And it was just like, boom, he has his own show. Boom, you're looking for this. I could easily see that in the investors call of like, oh, and because of the success of WandaVision, we have a character story that we want to adventure with him. So I could easily see them just dropping the series and him not being in a movie. I will say fact to play safe because I think he could have a cameo. But the thing that screws me is I think we talked about this with you, me, and Brent, and even maybe before. It's just like, I could see him appear in like Armor Wars. So like he could appear in a Disney Plus show, but if you're saying movie, so let's see, next 5 years. So it has to be, you know what? I'm talking myself out of it. I'm going to say fiction because I think he's a better chance at it. It's tough because Doctor Strange, but like I said, I could see them announcing a show. I know some people say like, oh no, this show's done. I literally could see them doing a Vision show, a 6-episode Vision show, whether it is like the Tom King thing, whether it's something just inspired by him trying to figure out his life, whether it's whatever it may be. And yeah, I'm going to say fiction. I'm going to say fiction.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go with fact, not because I wrote it, because I'll go against some of my own things, but I just think that it's a fascinating kind of, because when he does show up, you're not going to have enough time. You could be like very quickly, it's like, oh, I did this I think there's more to that character of gaining back his what it means to be more sentient, quote unquote, if you want to say more human at that point. Oh, Mephisto, you should Mephisto saying I'll give her children back if she gives me the Darkhold. Well, you can always bargain with Dormammu. Me and where we got this? All right, me and Shinton. Okay, yeah. Well, you just want to destroy the multiverse. Yeah, we'll see at that point. I
don't know, Mephisto. I know you're strong, but after that finale, I got my money on Wanda. She's pretty tough. She's been through a lot, so I don't think you can take her down. And
well, I mean,
Tomasada, who wants us to watch your Star Wars film, you know what you should do is tune in to Star Wars Alliance because I'm sure you know what they would love to watch it. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Talk to Katie and Nathan. They will definitely give you some information on that. But I'm gonna go with fact on this because I think there's more to this. I think a show focused on Vision, even if it's just a 1-season show, that's all it would need to be. Is what happened, or now that he's gained back his thing, where does he go from here? Yeah. If he and Wanda aren't going to be together. My last one, let's see which one I'm going to go with. Let's do some mutants. All right. The first official MCU mutant will not be a character that has been featured in the prior X-Men movies.
Yeah. Let's see. So first, yeah, it's tough because and this would be a new character, right? Like not retconning, say like Wanda
Like
is a mutant. Like we meet a new character, and it's like this is like they'll use the word mutant, and it's set like a character, right?
say for the character just sticks in my mind because I was listening to a comic book review of it, like Armor.
Mm-hmm.
We've never seen Armor done in the movies. Now, I'm not saying like, oh, that there's no Professor Xavier. No, Professor Xavier would be maybe the second person in that scene that comes on, but the first person we see is a mutant that we have never seen before portrayed in film.
I'll say fiction. I think this one's tough because I do agree with you. You could literally meet somebody, then people be like, I don't know who that is. And then you get the reveal, oh, it's this. But I always also think that the first time we see mutants could be a bunch of them together. Like, I always think there's a chance we could meet the X-Men. And I think by chance you'll have a Scott Summers or a Jean Grey or somebody in there. So I'll say fiction on that one. I think there's a possibility of being true, but just to play it safe, I'll say fiction on that.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna go with fiction on it just because I think that the idea of how pivotal something like a Professor X or a Magneto or someone big means at that point is to have an MCU introduction of them, they got to be the first. I think Feige wants that moment too.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So, all right. So those are my factor fictions.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. We'll tweet those out and please go vote. Let us know if you have any. And yeah, we'll see you next week. I'll get my ready because that will be the last
Maybe
time.
Mephisto might have some factor fictions for us.
Yeah, Mephisto, get something ready for next week. Let us know. And then yeah, next week, of course, I'll do them when I return monthly. But next week will be my last full time one. So I gotta get some good ones. I gotta really dive in the noggin and make those 3 really good. So
really easy. So yeah, so Comic Book Corner. Let me real quick. What we're gonna do? Mm-hmm. We're gonna put out a poll. Like I said, the idea is this week we'll do the theme. We're gonna be, the 2 themes are whether you want us to tackle an Ultimate line or a 90s event.
Okay.
So we've already started thinking about, or at least I've already started thinking about it at that point. I've brought them up with you. I know you're not going to be here, but I like pawning off ideas because we've got to choose our next host.
Yeah.
The idea that, what are some of the key? So out of those things, we will put up whoever wins 90s or Ultimates. The next poll will be, these are your 4 choices. And so once, we'll put up the poll, we'll probably end it maybe sometime later this weekend at that point. So that way it'll give me a chance to kind of come up with some arcs for those to put up there and then we can announce them on the show.
Yeah, that one's tough because you have the 90s, which is a very interesting hot time in comic books, but then you have the Ultimates, just like has so much praise and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see what takes it. But yeah,
so the whole Ultimates line and every kind of 90s, all the 90s cheese events.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. So no, that's exciting. I'm excited to see what wins out of those. And I'm excited to see the 4 options. So yeah, that will go live, like Chris said. We'll try and get that out there before the weekend, so then Chris can start thinking of some stuff. So Tuesday we can announce those and. Yeah, and then before we get into this one, I'll announce what I chose for next week so people can start reading up and everything like that. I have chosen, because I know you and I are such big fans of it, I had to go something X-Men route. So we're going to read the What If from 1977, issue number 27, What If the Phoenix Had Not Died? So that's what we're going to be reading next week is, Phoenix... And this is the Dark Phoenix, so bad stuff going on. Obviously, lots of bad stuff happened, but the X-Men found a way to beat her. What happens if he didn't? So that's the one, kiddies. If you want to read up and join us next week, we'll be reading that one for my What If choice. So, but this week we got What If Civil War.
Yeah, like we said, there's tons of what ifs.
Oh, yeah.
And so I went down different paths. I went down, a lot of the things, even with the older what ifs, a lot of them have already been proven true.
I know there's ones where it's like, what if the Hulk was smart? It's like, well, that's not a what if anymore.
What if Jane Foster became Thor at that point? So, but this one was interesting. We have 2 stories kind of in one, and Tony is at the gravesite. The Watcher is talking to him and saying like, what if it starts off with basically saying, what if Tony didn't survive Extremis? He died. He is off the board. What happens with Civil War when there is no Tony Stark? It's dark.
Yes.
It's very dark how it happens. Now, I'll tell you what, I am not a fan of the art. That's one of my biggest detractors about this thing, but the story really intrigued me. And it's one of those things that when I was reading, I was like, this is actually a quite good. And plus with Brubaker, Ed Brubaker kind of penning up some of this at that point, that's what also piqued my interest, because I'm a stan of Brubaker. Give me a Brubaker story all the time and I will gladly read it. But yeah, it goes dark. We lose major heroes, like Spider-Man gets killed. I mean, this is like whole things. And then I never expected this, and I'd never read it until now, just how dark this would get, this first part of Civil War.
Well, yeah, and to start off there, like when you said the art, it's funny because I love the art when the stranger's talking to Tony.
Yes.
I really like that. So, and I think I've read this once a long time ago, just because I was a Civil War junkie. So it's like anything that came with Civil War, and I do really like the what ifs. Like the second they announced they're doing the shows, like this is perfect. There's so many. So the art style with him and the stranger is great. Once we get into it, it looks all the characters look very long and stretched out and very kind of almost like, I'm not sure if you guys have it in America, but it's like that gum that used to be like in a roll and it'd be in a package. It's supposed to be like the gum that like baseball players chew, and they're like very cartoony. It looks like very Saturday morning strip cartoony, and I didn't like a lot of the panels, and it kind of took me out of it somewhat. But the stories are really good, and obviously we're talking about the first one, and yeah, it's funny because you see Captain America very similar as far as we can't do these, I almost call them the chords now because of the movies, but the superhuman registration, we can't do that. We got to find a way. And I love that is very much the Captain America way, because clock strikes midnight. The thing is up where they give them this ultimatum. And there's only, they say in this version, there's like a few that have decided to join it, but majority of them are not, because there's not a massive hero standing up and saying, hey, let's do this. It's just Cap pretty much. It's one-sided, right? And I love how both sides throughout the story, Rhodey's like, and I know if Tony was here, he'd find a way to realistically shut this down. And then Cap's just like, in his own little version with somebody, I know if Tony was here, he'd be with us side by side. And it's funny because he was on the other side, but it's funny that both heroes with James Rhodes and Captain America have like different point of views of how they view Tony. And obviously that's what happened in Civil War. But they have this whole thing of like, we're going to get together, but we're not going to do anything. We're only going to save people and we'll act in defense. We're not going to attack. And someone goes, what's your plan, Captain America? Says nothing. We will wait till we're attacked. Right when the clock strikes midnight, boom, Sentinels come in. They're killing people. Spider-Man gets taken out. Daredevil gets taken out. Like you said, very dark.
One of them explodes, and it's just like, it's violent, but there's not blood and guts and things like that. But it's jarring.
Yeah, and it happens really quick, and it just goes from like 0 to 50. Like I said, really quick and fast, and it's much worse than what happened before. And then you have later on where Cap's really down. He has no plan. He doesn't know what he's going to do. And it just gets worse and worse. Like every time like he gets a symbol of Tony's armor, he's like, here we go. This will be the turning point. And then classic Captain America, he gets this robot down because they've introduced that the government and Dum Dum Dugan is talking with, how do you pronounce it?
Gyrick.
Okay. Mm-hmm. They're talking about like, hey, that Sentinels, that wasn't the plan. What should we do? And they kind of create these human controlled ones where they can get in the machine.
Basically from the 198 when we had the X-Men, post House of M.
Yeah. So Captain America takes this down. He goes to pretty much destroy it, aka killing the machine. But there's a very young soldier in it. So he kind of flashbacks. And then they decide, okay, we're going to go underground now. And that doesn't go well because then Maria Hill's a rat, and James Rhodes finally sees like, well, maybe we're doing the wrong thing here. And then it just, again, they go to have a meeting, Captain America and James Rhodes, and then that goes wrong. And I do like that Rhodey is kind of the guy on the other side because he is close to Tony, so he kind of acts as like the substitute for it. But even eventually he goes, no, this isn't right. Rhodes just literally gets shot in the back of the head. It's just one thing after another. It's just a terrible reality, even worse than the one we got.
And it fits because Gyrick being a big X-Men villain, there's nothing redeemable ever about Gyrick with the X-Men. But the fact that Maria Hill is the mole within the midst at that point of betraying Rhodey and saying this was needed to be done. But she even brings up the point like saying, maybe the next time we could afford to listen. And that leads us to the next story of, and I like this art better. It's definitely okay. It's definitely my favorite, but it was too cartoony for this one. This one's a little bit better, but the idea of that moment, and that's what the interesting thing was, what if like that one moment is changed in the sense of in Civil War, Tony was saying, we can talk about this. We can do this. You can work with me. I'm willing to listen to you. And that shaking the hand in the actual series, it deactivated Tony's armor and all hell broke loose. And this time he pulled his hand back before he shook and said, I need your help, Cap. He said something at that moment and it got through to Cap, and they started listening, and then like one of the Shield people is like, "Oh my God, like release Thor" at that point, and Maria's like, "No, don't do that," and they unite against clone psychotic killer Thor, and they're able to. It's just interesting, like one simple thing, listening and getting above both your prides. Because they both were very prideful in that sense, and that was both their downfalls in Civil War.
Oh, and that's like, to me, that's why I do like what if scenarios, because those are sometimes the most relatable to life. Because I guarantee you, there is one instance, if I didn't show up to a certain party and have a conversation, the versions of my kids that are here right now may not even exist. My fiance and me may not have this relationship, but it's because I went somewhere one night, struck up a conversation. We used to work together, and then just decide, oh, we'll keep talking. It led to a lot of great things. But if I didn't go, if I was sick, that could have changed my entire life. And that's the same thing with this. Tony just saying one thing, and that's where it's just like, the last one, which I forgot to mention too, the other dark thing was the army of clone Thors, because in this one they have the Thor clone, the Thunderstruck, I think they call it, the program or whatnot. But in the other one, because they had time to prepare, that's what killed all the heroes. But this was great because that reality was just Tony going, "Oh, I did the right thing." But then the Stranger goes, "Yeah, but that's just one of many, because here's this thing where if you would have said this, literally this is the best scenario where." Everything goes right. They stay friends. People stay alive. Even Iron Man goes to kill himself, to sacrifice himself in place of Goliath, but Captain America saves him. They start almost like an X Academy where they're bringing younger superheroes when they find them, training them.
But it was perfect in the sense of like, he said, "I want you to run it. You run the academy. You're the one that's going to know all the heroes' names. You're the only one anyone ever trusts. No one ever thinks you have a bad bone in your body. They trust you. You're the only one." And then he's like, "Well, what if I die? I'll have you pick your successor. You pick the person." And he said, "What if people mentally control me? I'll put things in place so that doesn't happen." But he said, "Well, how's the government ever going to go? I got a plan for that." And they do the exact same thing you see people do. You put an announcement out there to the public at that point, and it forces their hand, saying, "Well, of course you're doing this. I don't like it. I mean, the president says I don't like it, but we're going to have to go with it. But I warn you, it's better not go sideways." And guess what? Like you said, it is the best case scenario, and it ended up being they didn't go down the dark path, in the sense of we didn't lose Cap. We didn't have to have Tony be the biggest bad guy in the world, because again, I think we said when we went through Civil War, they both have a point. They both are right, and they're both are wrong.
Well, in this what if scenario, and I'm sure they did read it, reminds me a lot of in the movie when they capture Black Panther, they capture Falcon, Captain America, and then the last chance where Tony sits down with Cap and he has like his father's pens, and it's all going great, and Cap's is like, "Well, there'll have to be regulations, there'll have to be this, and blah blah blah," and then Tony just mentions, funny enough, WandaVision, mentions one line about Vision overseeing Wanda, and right away Captain America goes, "No, that's not right. Like, why are you watching?" Yeah. We're off. But if that didn't happen, or if Tony didn't choose to do that, maybe they would have signed in, same thing. Maybe the snap wouldn't happen because they would have been prepared for Thanos. But just one word, one sentence changed everything. And no, it's great, the ending there of saying like, "Oh, I'm glad that we worked this out, pal." And he's like, "I am too." And then it cuts to Tony just crying on the grave, just like Batman from Mask of the Phantasm with his parents, like, and just asking the stranger like, "Oh, why do you show me these things?" But the good thing, he's like, "I'm like you who actually can see all these things, but the difference is," and I love this quote where he says, but you have something I don't. You can cause the ripples." And that's where it's just like, we have known nothing about the stranger really, but that was just a fun little wrinkle to add, that like, this guy sees everything, but whatever his life is, he can't do anything. And that's the thing where it's just like, that whatever this power is sounds like a terrible life unto itself, but it is a great kind of Ghost of Christmas Past sort of story, and I liked the framing of the grave and the talking to them, and it was a good one for you to pick, and I also thought it was good for you to pick because that was the first comic book club we did, so it was like a nice full circle,
It was not intentional, but it's just like we said, lots to choose from, and just a fun one. So yeah, I look forward to reading. I had not read that, and I have read that one, but it's been a very long time since I've done that.
Yeah, and many of these, like, I think I've read, but when I start through them, I go, "Oh, maybe that was a different one." Because some of them go a little, like, I think there's literally one where it's, "What if the Hulk lost control?" And there's one like, "What if the Hulk went berserk?" And it's like, these feel like very of the same thing, like whatever it may be. So it's like, which one did I read? But those are always fun to read over because it's just, like, you just get, it's kind of like a Elseworlds tale, right? You get carte blanche, you can do whatever. And it's fun to see the different point of view. So I'm excited to do that.
Yep. Well, Episode 39, chapter 39.
Yeah, I may be leaving in 2 weeks, but I'm going to be here for the big 4-0. So I'm excited because I missed the 3-0. That was you and Ben. So
Yep.
next week will be the big 4-0. I'm excited. Like I said, I hoping Kim Feige's going to do some nice press tours next week because, yeah, we may not have a show to talk about, but I think if our press tours are happening, we're going to get some good content there. And even then, maybe the Illuminati will put out some sort of fun Twitter thing we can talk about. But no, another good episode. And a big thank you to Ryan who joined us. It was fun to talk to him for the first time.
Yeah, no, great. So yeah, why don't we remind people how to follow you?
You can follow me at Travis B. Snail. Follow me here, Marvel Alliance, because like I said, even when I leave, I'll be here once a month. I'll be appearing on other podcast stuff. We got tons of things going on. As always, just a big shout out to his DC Alliance. Next week's the Snyder Cut review. We will make an official announcement, but I think there'll be some programming changes. Like we think superhero discussions might go on the Tuesday, and then superhero discussions might not go on Friday. So there'll be like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday where it will just be the Snyder Cut review. So at the beginning of next week, you'll hear some announcements as far as what they're doing, but I'm sure everybody's looking forward to it. But I know you guys and that crew's looking very forward to it, and I think it'll be an interesting review. And I think Katie's going to try to be on it, so I hope she is because she's somebody that's like, different point of view as far as you guys. She enjoys some stuff of the DCU, but very different outlook. So check that out. Check out Geek Online. Check out Geek First. Check out my Twitter feed because there'll be some fun stuff popping up there, especially in April. I got something really fun cooking up. It's gonna be good. And then as always, thank you, Chris, for hosting the show, and it's always a pleasure. And everybody out there, I hope you're safe, happy, and healthy.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for everyone joining us live chat. Thank you again, Ryan. Thank you, Mephisto, for making an appearance. I appreciate it at that point. You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Balga. You can follow this show on Twitter at Marvel A Podcast. You can email this show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network at GUA Pod Network. Feel free to tweet, email if you got feedback, ask questions, fact or fictions. Continue to rate and review the network on Apple Podcasts, whichever platform of your choice may be. Again, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining the chat. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers.